Alright, so in this video I'm going to tackle a problem that a few people asked me to do. Basically, I'm going to try to populate Google Forms drop-down box using data from Google Sheets. Now, this is not something I usually do, honestly, so if I have a situation like this, I would use a web app, but I'm going to tackle this and hopefully that will work out for you, right? So the reason I don't really do this in Google Sheets and Forms is because there is really no great way of doing this. But anyhow, I'm going to show you how you could do something like this. So what I'm going to do, I have a blank spreadsheet right here. I'm going to go to Google Forms and make a brand new Google form. This is my form. I'm going to go here and rename this. I'm going to say data from SS from spreadsheet. Hit enter. That pretty much saved that. Now in this form, basically we're going to have a drop down box. So I'm going to add a new question. And then this question is going to be a drop down. So we're going to start with a drop down option. I'm going to do drop down. And here we're going to select what the question is. So the question is going to be, what is your favorite fruit? And we'll do some options. So we'll do like apple, orange, banana. Anyways, the whole point is that we don't want to type this. We want to somehow get this data from here, from our spreadsheet. So frankly, I'm just going to remove all that stuff. So now I want to be able to just update this list using the information in our spreadsheet. So I'm going to go here. Let's rename the spreadsheet. I'm going to call this form data. Maybe we'll spell it right, although that makes absolutely no difference. So a couple of things I'm going to have to do. Number one, I'm going to have to decide how do I write the script. So we can either create the script on Google Forms side, or we can create the script on Google Spreadsheets side. So I'm going to make that on Google Sheets side. Now, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy exactly this question and I'm going to paste it as a column label right here. And here I'm going to type the options that I'm going to provide: apples, bananas, oranges, etc. Maybe I'll make that bold, but that doesn't matter. Rename this tab to data. So I'm going to do tools, script editor from the spreadsheet side. This is my script. I'm going to rename this populate form. Again, these names don't make any difference whatsoever. It's just a name for the project. Save that. Now there are a couple things I need to do. I need to get the ID for my spreadsheet and the ID for my form. So I'm going to create a couple of global variables here. I'm going to do var SSID. That will be our spreadsheet ID, and it will just be text. And then I'm going to do var form ID, and that's also going to be text. So let me go get those IDs. So the spreadsheet ID will be right here. So I'm going to copy the whole link. Then I'm going to change it a little bit. So I'm going to paste that link over here. So the ID is really not the whole thing. So it's what's after this like D/ thing. See? So I'm going to remove all that part. And then I'm going to also remove this / the rest of the stuff. So that's the ID for my spreadsheet. Let me go grab the ID for my form. Go back to this, paste the ID, get rid of this stuff in here. And then just go ahead and remove this stuff in here as well. So I got the ID for my form, ID for my spreadsheet. Now I'm going to try to open those two. So I'll do a couple of variables here. I'll do var ws, so data. So that's our data worksheet. And I'll open my spreadsheet app dot. So we're going to do open, and we're going to open by ID. The ID is this SSID, and in that spreadsheet I'm gonna do get sheet by name. The worksheet that I'm gonna open is this one called data. I'm gonna copy that, go here, and use that in quotes. So that's my worksheet name. Now I'm going to create another variable that will be form. And we're going to use form app. We're going to open by ID again. The ID is our form ID. So that should open our form. Now let's go inside of our function and see what we're going to do with these things. Now, first of all, I want to just figure out how do I update this drop-down list options from here before even I get to my spreadsheet. So I'm going to go to this form. That's the variable dot. And in this form, let's see what we have. See, we have all of this like add item and all this delete, get, all this get methods. See, there's this get ID and there is get item by ID. Now we have to get the item by its ID. So if the items basically in a form are pretty much everything in the form, it can be in dropdown, it can be something else. So we need to figure out which one it is. So to figure out which one it is, first of all, let's just, instead of figuring out, let's just do the regular method. Let's just say get item by ID and let's just do 1. So we'll do var item equals to that. So let's try to just log that and see what we get. So logger log item. Save that. Let's try to run this. So we're going to run this. It will ask us for permissions. So we'll review those and give permissions, allow. Let's view our logs. So it says null. So basically we got nothing as the item. Let's try to do ID 0. So look at the log. Again, null. So what if we do ID 2? So it seems like we got nothing. So I'm going to have to troubleshoot this to see what's going on. And just get items to see if we get anything in return. So we'll do var items equals that, and then I'll log that out. Items. So out of curiosity, are we getting anything? So log, and see, we got null, then we got item. So we do have 2 items. Probably the ID is just not 1 or 2 or 3. So we have to figure out what that ID is. Now, if we do items 0, that will be the first item. In the first item, I get ID. That will give us what the ID is. So I'm going to run that. Apparently that was the ID. And if we do the second one, which is probably our drop down actually. So 1, because in array, the second one is number 1. Log, this will be the number. So assuming that that's a very big number, it gives us that integer with that weird notation. So I'm going to make a very quick text out of this. So I'm going to do to string. So that's the item ID. Copy it and go back and change this to that ID of the item. Remove this stuff and let's now log this again. So I'm going to run this, view the logs, and now it's the item. Now for this item, I'm going to do get title. So I'm going to run this, look at our logs, and so that was not the right ID. So that was actually this one, apparently. I needed the first one. So I'm going to have to go back and get my items and find out what's the ID for the first item. And then we'll come back to this later on. So run that. The log, that's the ID. Go back and update this. I'm going to comment these lines for now. I don't want to use them. So hopefully now when I run this, we'll see that the title is going to be, well, the right one. What is your favorite fruit? Which is actually the one we need to update. We want to update this one. Cool. Now, if I do this get title, I get the question. If I do get type, that will most likely be the type of this. So this is a list, apparently. That's good. Now I'm gonna do this. See, when you do dot, now because it's a list, it has to be this as list item. So I'm gonna do as list item, and then we're gonna do dot. And now see, these are some things we can do with this. So we can get some things, can get ID, but more importantly, I want to do this set stuff. See, set choice values, and then it says string. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do set choice values, and then it's gonna be values, and it seems like it's an array. I don't need to log this anymore. I'm gonna remove all of that log stuff. Now I need this values. So that values is gonna be an array. Let's actually create that on a separate line. So I'm gonna do var values, and it's just a variable name. You can call this anything, just whatever you call it needs to go here too. So that's going to be values, and it's an array. So array basically is a comma separated list of stuff. I'm going to say apples, oranges, tomatoes, those three. So those are going to be my values. I'm going to try to set those values here. Let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to run this. No errors. Let's go look at our form. Look at that. We just updated our form with those three values: apples, oranges, and tomatoes. Now, I want to see if I had to change this list, do I need to do anything else other than just provide it a different array and run the same thing? So I'm going to remove, for example, apples and leave oranges and tomatoes. Let's run this again and see what happens. And cool, that updates, no problems. So now we figured out how this is going to work. So basically what I need to do, I need to provide the ID of the thing I'm updating, and I need to provide an array of values. So let's convert that to a function so we can use it, right? So I'm going to copy it, go down here, paste, and I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call this update dropdown. And for that, we're going to need ID, and we're going to need values, which is the array. So ID is going to be this, and the values is going to be the array, like this. And this we don't need. Good. So now I'm going to remove all of that stuff. And now we need to figure out how do we get the ID. So the way we're going to get the ID is by using the question name. And the question is, what is your favorite fruit? So I'm going to copy that, go back here, and first let's save it in a variable, var title equals to that question. So we're going to find the item's ID using the question. If you remember, when I did this items, it gets me the list of items. And then what it is, it's an array of items. So what I can do, because it's an array, I can basically just iterate through that array and run through every single one of that. So I'm going to do items.map. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to map, and I'm going to show you why I'm doing this. So I'm going to map that array to create another array. And I'm going to save the result in a new variable. I'm going to call this variable titles, plural. So that's going to hold all the titles. And you'll see what that means. So I'm going to create a function here that's going to be our callback for this array. If you don't understand this map, all these array methods, I have a lot of videos covering all those array methods. It's a whole list of videos. It's not something I can really cover within a few seconds. So if you want to understand those in depth, watch those videos. Otherwise, you can just write the same code. So this function is going to accept the actual item, and each item in a list. Remember, we had those things like get titles, get this, get that. That's pretty much what we're going to have. So we're going to do items, and see, we have all of this stuff. So each item, whatever that item is, and we can do get title for that item. So I'm just going to return the title of the item like this. And now if I just log the titles, Let's see what happens. So I'm going to run this function. I'm going to look at the log and see what it is. It's basically a list of all the titles we have. So we have, this is what is your favorite fruit. This is the second one, which is this untitled question. Good. So now if we search in this titles to find this question, we should be able to find which item is the right item. And the way we can do that, we can take this titles, which is an array, and do this index of method. And by the way, this index of is case sensitive. So we need to make sure that this is exactly the same with uppercase, lowercase, everything matches. So we're going to search for that title in this. So if I run this, view the log, see it says 0. 0 means it's in the first position. And it was. It was the first one and it was the second one. Good. So we have this. That's going to give us the position of the title that we're after. Because we have the position, we should be able to go. So let's create variable position. So that position is going to be the position of this title that we're looking for. Now, once we found the position, then we can pick up that item from this items list in that position. So our actual item should be equal to items array. And in that items array, we will pick the position that we found in this list. So that will give us the actual item. And this item is going to be this dropdown. Now, once we have the dropdown, we're going to do that item dot, and we're going to do as list item because, well, it's a dropdown. We probably don't need to do that because we kind of do it here. So I probably don't even have to do as list items in this case. I could just do get ID because that's really what I'm after. I want to find what's the ID for that item. So I'll do var item ID equals to that. That will get us the ID. And now that we have the ID, we basically need to have the ID, remember here, and we need the array to set the array. Which means that now if I do some values here, and I'll do an array. So I'll just do something simple. Something like that. We have our values. We should be able to run this update dropdown function to update the list. And we need to provide the item ID, which we were able to find using the title of the element, and the values, which is going to be this array. So save this, run it, go back. Now we have this updated. So that works. Cool. So now basically I just need this values and I need the title. I'm going to cut that, move this up, put this on top here because nowhere else I'm using those values. So I'll just do my variables here on top. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to convert this to a function again. So I'm going to create this function. This is going to be update dropdown using title. Let's do dropdown. Let's be very specific. Update dropdown using title. So now we're going to accept a title and we're going to accept an array of values. And then I'm going to get rid of all of those. So now basically I converted that to a function too. This is going to be my second function. Moving to the next one. So I'm going to do a new function. This is the function where I'm going to now start getting this data from the spreadsheet and putting that in this list. So I'm going to do function main. And in this main function, I want to first go to that spreadsheet. This one. So I have already this worksheet data. That's excellent. So I'm going to get the data from here. So the first thing I want to do, so my thinking is I want to create this not to work for just one thing. I want this to work for multiple things if necessary. So if we have multiple drop downs, I want to just add another column for the next question. So actually, let me do something like that. Let's make another one here, say another question. And that's going to be a drop down too. And I'm going to copy that question. Go here, paste it there, make it bold. And then have some options here. Cool. So I have the options for that question. So my first thing is going to be, I'm going to go to the spreadsheet. I'm going to get all of these labels from this first row and then find how many questions we have and need to update, right? So I'm going to go here and do get range. So in that worksheet, we're going to get a range. And that range is basically going to be my entire first row. That is going to start row 1, column 1. And then the number of rows is going to be 1. And the number of columns is going to be, if I just take the data and do get last column, that should give me the column. And then we're going to read this to an array. So we're going to do get values. And we're going to save it to a variable. I'm going to say var labels. Let's just log this out to see what this looks like so far. So labels. I'm going to run that function main. Let's take a look. So as you can see, it's an array of arrays. So it's an array that has an array, which is basically those labels. Now to make sure I just get one array, I'm going to get the 0 position. And actually, I'm just not going to do it here. I'll just do it right here in the end. So this way, we're not going to get 2 arrays. We'll just get one array that has the list of items. So we have an array that has the first question and the second question. Cool. So we have our questions. Now I'm going to loop through that array. So I'm going to do labels dot, and I'm going to do for each loop. I'm going to do a callback function. And that's going to end here. And this function is going to accept a label each time. So each label, that's going to be basically first time this, then this. So what we need to do when we get the label, for the first one, we need to go and get all these values for that label. So first of all, let's just log out the label. And we also need to log at the same time as we log the label, all the values over here. And the way we're going to do that, we need to first figure out which column this information is coming in but that we're going to do actually by adding this second argument here. So I'm going to do this argument I, or yeah, I is fine. So I'm going to do this I so you can see what happens with that I. So this function callback actually accepts a secondary optional argument, which is the iterator number or index, whatever you're going to call this. So let me just run this so you can see what it looks like. So now I'm logging the label and I'm logging the I. Let's see what that is. See, it says that's the first question, that's the label. Then we get 0, that's the first one. Then another question, we get 1. Then it's going to do 2, 3, 4. So that I is going to give us some sort of position. Now, because that I is a position, I can now use that in my advantage. So I'm going to do ws data and get range. And the range is going to start. So this is where I'm going to grab this. I'm going to get it from the second row. First column in this case. Now that first column is going to be first column only when it's the first question. Then it's going to be the second column. But remember, the iterator is going to give us 0, 1, 2. What I need is 1, 2, 3. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do I plus 1. So I is going to be 0 plus 1 is the first column. That's going to give us that. Then we need the number of rows we need to go down. So in this case, it's going to be these 3. down. So, which I could do many different ways, I guess. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get the last column for now. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do get last row of the whole worksheet. Now keep in mind that that's going to be 4 right now, even for this one. But that's fine. We'll leave that. So that's going to be the last row. We need to do -1 because, well, it's going to be this -1 to get to 1 less than that. Although I don't think that's important at this point. So we're going to do -1. And then number of columns is just going to be 1. So we're going to take that and we're going to get values. Let's just take a look and see what this looks like. So I'm going to do var options equals to that. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Let's just log those options. Let's see what it looks like. So log options. And I'm going to run this. Let's take a quick look. So see, it says, what is your favorite question? Then it's basically apples, bananas, oranges. And it's an array of arrays, which we will have to fix. And then another question, we have yes, no, and we have this third one because we got 3 anyways, because we got the last row. Now, first I want to make sure this is not an array of arrays. It's just an array. So it should be just apple, bananas, oranges without this bracket. So for that, we'll just take this get values and we'll map it to a new array. And we'll do a function callback. And for each O, that will stand for option, we're going to return the O in position 0. Like this. Now I'm going to start moving things to new lines because this is getting too long and it's hard to read. So I'm going to do like this. We're going to do get values. We're going to map it. That's the same. I just want you to be able to see this. So, and then we're going to return the option at position 0. So let's just save and log this out to see what this looks like. So you can see it's pretty much the same. Now we don't have an array of arrays. It's just basically an array with our values in it. We still have yes, no, and this empty thing in the end. I'm going to ignore it for now and try to just use this information to build my form stuff in here. So basically, if you remember, I made this function, and this function, what it needs is the title, which I'm getting right here. And it needs a values array, which I have right here. So I should be able to use that in my advantage here. So let me actually remove that log and remove this log. And instead, let's just replace it with our function right here. And we'll pass the title will be the label in this case. And the values will be the options. So let's run this code. I want to see what happens with that blank extra thing in the end. I don't know if this is still here, this blank. Will it actually handle it automatically, or do we have to clean those up? That's what I'm curious about. So I'm going to run this. Let's go check it out. So apparently it did add that third option as a blank, which we don't want, but it did work. So we have apples, bananas, oranges. We have yes or no for another question, which is that. Let's try to now fix that situation with our options. So I'm going to comment this line that does the form thing. So what we need to do, we need to get rid of all the blanks out of our options list. So that means after the map, I'm going to add another filter here. And in my filter, I'm basically going to, again, have a callback function. And for each option, we'll only return the ones that are not equal to blank. Something like that. And I'll do, I guess, strict. So what happened there? Oh, of course, I forgot to use the variable. Let's run this. Oh, actually, I should have probably done that. So that should remove everything that's blank. I'm going to save it, run it. Let's go back and check it out. See, we got yes or no without that blank extra thing. And we have apples, oranges, and bananas. Now let's go back and change stuff here. Pineapples, grapes, berries. I don't know, whatever that's going to be. Yes, no, maybe. Something like that. So now let's go and run the same thing. Go back to this. See, we got all of those. Cool. And we got all of these. So that updates our drop downs just fine. That's good. That works. Possibly the only thing we should do is do some error handling in case we don't find maybe the question. Because right now, if we accidentally type something that we don't find in the list, or maybe go here and type new question, which really doesn't exist, let's see if we get an error, which I assume we do. There it is. See, we go here and we try to update basically using that title, and what happens is that we're not able to find that item with that name, and we get this error. And at this point, what's going to happen when we don't find it and we do this index of, this position is going to be -1. When you don't find something, it's a -1. And when it's -1 position, we probably don't want to do all this stuff below. So we just want to ignore it. So we'll say, let's add an if statement. We'll say if that position is equal to -1. So we'll just say if it's not equal to -1, then let's do this. So we're going to run all of this stuff below only when we find that title. I'm going to tab this in. Maybe move it to the same line as this stuff. There it is. So now we have a little bit of error handling. So we're going to say if it's not found, then we're going to just ignore it. So if I save this, I should be able to have this extra stuff here that's not relevant. So I'll just change this a little bit so we see some updates. Something like this. I'm going to run this again. And again, I was running that main function, so it was on it. So let's go back here, take a look. Grapes, berries, oranges, pineapples. See, now I don't have to deal with that error message because we just ignore it if it's not in the list. Cool. So that's our drop-down updater. The only thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to add a button for somebody to click on to update the records. So I'm going to go here, do insert and drawing. We're going to add a little text box. We're going to say update form. We'll do some colors and stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm sure you can do this better than I can. So I'll just do some background color on this. That's good enough for me. I'm not going to make it too pretty. Good. So that's that. Save and close. That's the button. Now I'm going to assign this button to this main function. So I'm going to click on this, click on that, assign script, and then the name of the function is main. Okay, that's that. So now every time I want to update something, I'm just going to go here, pineapples, oranges, etc. I'm going to add blueberries. Hopefully I didn't mistype anything. If I did, that's fine. I'm going to run this. Go back to my form. There it is, blueberries and all this stuff. So there you go. That's something that will work. It's definitely not the most efficient way of doing this because every time I run this function, I go and iterate for each item through the entire list here in the form and find the stuff. Definitely not the most optimal way, but for something small, this would work and it should be fine. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.